The wail of a baby cut sharply through the hum of the airplane cabin, like a small storm in the middle of calm. Passengers exchanged awkward glances, some annoyed, some sympathetic, and some pretending not to notice, but no one could escape it. In the first-class section, a well-dressed man in his early 30s fumbled nervously, sweat glistening on his forehead. His tie was loose, his designer watch catching the cabin lights. Yet none of that mattered against the weight of the restless infant in his arms. This was Ethan Carter, a young tech millionaire who was used to solving impossible problems in boardrooms. Not in the cramped aisles of a plane. His baby, little Oliver, had been crying for nearly an hour since takeoff. Flight attendants had tried everything, warm milk, pacifiers, toys, but nothing worked. Ethan's face told the story of exhaustion and guilt. This was his first trip alone with Oliver since losing his wife, Grace, in a car accident 6 months ago. Every Pearson cry reminded him of everything he had lost. Grace had been his calm, his warmth. Now, he was left navigating fatherhood alone, balancing it with meetings, calls, and lonely nights filled with lullabies he barely knew how to sing. Whispers started to ripple through the cabin. A woman nearby shook her head, muttering something about rich people who didn't know how to parent. Ethan heard her. It hurt not anger, but shame. He looked down at Oliver, whose little face was red from crying, tiny hands clawing at the air for comfort. "I'm sorry, buddy," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. "Daddy's trying." A few rows back, a young woman had been watching quietly. Clara Evans, a single mother returning home after visiting her sister, held her sleeping daughter, Lily, gently in her arms. Her worn denim jacket and simple bag told a story of modest means, but her eyes were full of understanding. Clara recognized the fear in Ethan's eyes, the same fear she had known as a mother trying to comfort a child who needed her completely. For a few moments, she hesitated. She didn't want to intrude, but as Oliver's cries grew louder, she knew she couldn't stay seated. Standing softly, she walked down the aisle and leaned toward Ethan. "Excuse me," she said gently. Ethan looked up, surprised and embarrassed. I think I can help," Clara continued. "Help," Ethan repeated, confused. Clara nodded, her eyes full of kindness. "I have breast milk. My daughter is about the same age. I can feed him, if you're okay with it." For a moment, the cabin was silent. Ethan froze. Such an offer was unexpected, intimate, and deeply human. He glanced down at Oliver, whose cries were softening, and then back at Clara. Tears welled in his eyes. Please help him," he whispered. Clara settled beside him and, with gentle hands, cradled Oliver. Within moments, the baby's cries faded into peaceful coos. The tension in the cabin lifted. Passengers who had been irritated moments ago now watched quietly, some with tears in their eyes. Ethan felt a rush of awe and gratitude. A stranger, someone with nothing to gain, had shown pure compassion. When Oliver drifted to sleep, Clara returned him to Ethan with a smile. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. "You don't have to," Clara replied softly. "I know what it's like to feel alone with a crying baby. Sometimes, all we need is someone who understands." The rest of the flight passed quietly. Ethan couldn't stop looking at Clara and her daughter, noticing the small, beautiful details of her care, patience, and empathy. When they parted at the airport, he wanted to give her something to repay her, but he realized some acts of kindness aren't meant to be repaid. They are gifts, moments of grace. Weeks later, Ethan still thought of that flight. Clara's words echoed in his mind whenever Oliver cried or sleepless nights returned. Be patient with him, and with yourself. Slowly, Ethan learned. He read parenting books, spent evenings talking to his son, and began to heal not just as a father, but as a man. One morning, he opened his laptop to find a charity proposal from a small foundation for single mothers struggling with childcare. The name caught his attention. Lily's Light Foundation. Without hesitation, Ethan donated generously, leaving a note that simply read, "For the kindness that changed my life at 30,000 feet. If this story touched your heart, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness. Every act of compassion reminds us that humanity still thrives. And before you go, tell us in the comments what's the kindest thing a stranger ever did for you. Sometimes, one small act can change a life forever.